Welcome to Threads of Truth, where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation.
Today, we're opening a case that feels less like a typical investigation and more like a forensic puzzle box. One of those impossible objects that's been perfectly sealed. And for almost 30 years, people have been trying to find a way to pry it open.
And the setting for this puzzle box is pretty spectacular. We're in Oslo, Norway in June of 1995, the Oslo Plaza Hotel.
Which is this massive, sleek, 5-star beacon of luxury. It just towers over the city.
And that's the stage for this completely baffling death of an unidentified woman. The only name we have for her is the one she gave at Chicken, Jennifer Fairgate.
Though you might see it spelled Fergate in some of the older media reports.
Right. And this entire examination, it really hinges on a profound contradiction.
It really does. I mean, imagine this. A guest checks into one of the most exclusive hotels in Europe, but she has almost no luggage, just this one briefcase that's practically empty.
And she gives no ID, no credit card, nothing verifiable. The contact info she does give is just made up.
Completely manufactured.
Then, just days later, she's found dead in her room 2805, a single gunshot wound. And the official ruling comes down so fast.
Almost immediately. Suicide.
But the moment you start to look past that ruling, the scene itself, it screams something else. The staging reveals this almost obsessive level of operational security.
We're talking about clothes with all labels meticulously cut out. A handgun with the serial number professionally etched away with acid.
And maybe the most disturbing part, the total absence of fingerprints anywhere in the entire room.
This was not, the spontaneous, tragic act of a tourist in distress. This suggests a level of calculated tradecraft, a complete erasure of identity that points to something much more organized.
Like a high-level intelligence operation, maybe a state-sanctioned assassination.
Or professional organized crime. I mean, it has all the hallmarks.
So, our mission today is to walk through the bizarre timeline of the woman in room 2805. We're going to scrutinize all the source material we have and try to understand why, after all this time, Jennifer Fairgate is still one of Europe's most chilling, internationally recognized cold cases.
And we'll explore the vast contradictions that official suicide ruling just refuses to address.
Okay, so let's unpack the timeline. Because this meticulous erasure of her identity, it really begins the second she steps into that hotel on May 31st, 1995.
The check-in itself is where the first, the brightest red flags go up. She uses the alias Jennifer Fairgate, and she tells him she's 21 years old.
But she wasn't, was she?
No. Later on, forensic analysis based on her physical maturity suggested she was closer to 24, probably born around 1971. So even her age was a lie from the get-go.
And the address she gave her, Lane, Belgium, that was also
a complete fabrication. The street, the number, the phone number she provided, none of it existed. It was meticulously made up.
And that's significant, isn't it? The level of detail.
It shows intent. She didn't just, forget her ID or scribble down a random address she half remembered. She provided a specific, detailed, but completely non-existent location. That's classic cover story construction.
The thing that's truly remarkable to me is that the hotel just accepted it. This was a 5-star luxury place.
I know.
No identification, no passport, no credit card they could verify. She just paid in cash.
And this, I think, speaks volumes about the security protocols of high-end European hotels in the mid-90s.
It's just unthinkable today.
Oh, completely. Today, every guest is digitally profiled, scanned, you name it. Back then, if you had cash and you presented a certain air of, let's say, sophistication or urgency, you could often bypass those requirements.
Because they prioritize discretion?
Discretion and immediate revenue over exhaustive protocol. And it created the perfect operational environment for someone trying to stay invisible.
And crucially, it wasn't just her. She registered for 2 people.
Yes. She lists a companion named Lois Fairgate. And this is corroborated by a witness who said they saw her with an unidentified man at check-in.
And this companion, Lois, or the man, they just vanished.
Completely gone. Never identified, never located, disappeared from the records.
That detail alone, it's a linchpin, isn't it? It immediately casts doubt on the idea of a suicide in isolation.
Of course. I mean, if Lois Fairgate existed and checked in with her, then Lois Fairgate had to check out. Or, and this is far more likely, Lois Fairgate was the person responsible for the staging and the cleanup.
Okay, so physically, what do we know? We know she was about 5'2".
Blue eyes, dark hair. But beyond those pretty common features, the one really identifying element that stands out is her teeth.
Her dental work.
Extremely expensive, customized dental work. We're talking gold and porcelain inlays. Very high quality.
Which is another one of these paradoxes.
It's a huge paradox. On the one hand, every single thing she does is about erasing her identity. But on the other, she has these very expensive, very distinctive dental procedures. It suggests she came from an environment, and with the means, where quality healthcare was standard.
But maybe one where records were highly guarded.
Exactly. Like the diplomatic corps or an intelligence agency, somewhere records aren't just publicly available.
Okay, so let's get to her belongings, or I guess the complete lack of them.
Right. She arrived with almost nothing. She had a briefcase and inside a few pieces of clothing and a holster for a gun.
No passport, no wallet, no keys. And the most telling thing for a multi-day stay in a luxury hotel?
No toiletries. Not a toothbrush, not a comb, nothing.
What does that tell you?
It tells you this was not a vacation. This is not a comfortable business trip. It suggests a temporary staging post. Or that she was living out of a much larger, unseen cache of supplies that was either removed later or stored somewhere else entirely.
But the real professional signature is in her clothes. Let's talk about the labels.
This is textbook operational signature. It's classic tradecraft. When an operative is preparing for a mission where, capture or death is a real possibility, they remove all identifying markers from their personal effects.
The brand names, size tags.
Everything. Laundry instructions, country of origin markings, all of it. The goal is simple. You want to prevent anyone from tracing that item back to a country, a manufacturer, or a specific military or police supply chain.
And they were meticulously cut out, not just ripped off.
Precisely. Carefully excised. Which suggests this was standard procedure for her, not some last-minute panic decision.
There was one exception, though, right?
Yes. A single gray blazer still had its label. Maybe it was an item she acquired casually or something intended for non-operational use. But the overall pattern, it just screams professional intent.
And add to this the watch she was wearing. A Citizen Aqualand.
This detail adds so much weight to the whole covert identity theory. The Aqualand isn't a fashion watch. It's a tool.
What was it used for?
In the 90s, it was highly favored by military special operators, deep-sea divers, rescue personnel, people like that. It's incredibly robust, and it has specialized features for monitoring decompression. It implies training or affiliation with a highly specialized and probably dangerous field.
So the narrative takes a turn in the couple of days leading up to her discovery. The hotel keycard data shows a huge gap in time.
A very strange gap. The logs show she was absent from room 2805 for about 20 to 24 hours. She leaves on the morning of June 1st and doesn't return until the morning of June 2nd.
Which, for a guest who has just checked in and is supposedly, contemplating suicide, it's baffling.
It's more than baffling. It strongly suggests she was engaged in some sort of mission or operational activity outside the hotel.
Like meeting a contact, maybe.
Meeting a contact, delivering information, conducting surveillance. Something. It was not the behavior of someone isolated in their room.
Okay, now we get to the evening of June 3rd. Security gets involved.
Right. Her bill hadn't been paid. So they send a security guard up to the room. And the timeline here is it's crucial, and it's full of these missed opportunities.
The guard knocks on the door of 2805.
And before he can even really complete his procedure, a single gunshot is heard from inside the room.
So what happens next is what I just can't get over.
It's the first critical failure in procedure. The guard, instead of trying to breach the door or secure the area immediately, he retreats. He leaves.
How long?
For about 15 crucial minutes. He goes to find the head of security.
15 minutes. In a high-stakes operational scenario. I mean, that's an eternity.
It is the absolute operational window needed for staging a scene. If there was a killer inside, the companion, Lois, or anyone else, those 15 minutes were a gift. Enough time to finalize the staging, wipe down the surfaces, remove any last bits of evidence,
and then execute the final complex maneuver of locking the door.
And getting away clean.
So when the security team finally comes back and gets into the room, they find her.
Dead. And the scene itself was just designed to confuse.
Let's start with the door.
The door was double locked from the inside. That means the deadbolt was engaged. And crucially, both of her key cards were found inside the room.
Which is the core argument for suicide, right? It's supposed to suggest isolation.
It is. It's the most compelling piece of evidence for the suicide theory. How could anyone else have locked it from the outside like that? But it's also a deliberate complication if the scene was staged by a professional.
And then there's a weapon itself, a 9mm Browning pistol.
He was found resting sort of awkwardly on her chest, loosely held in her right hand.
And the serial number.
Gone, but not crudely filed off, which is what you often see in, basic criminal activity.
How was it removed?
It had been professionally erased, etched away using acid. This technique completely destroys the metal matrix where the number is stamped, which prevents forensic techs from recovering it. Acid etching is the signature of organizations, states, intelligence groups, major crime syndicates that use industrial precision to ensure deniability.
Okay, so the forensic contradictions related to her body are what really blow the official suicide ruling out of the water. Let's talk about gunshot residue, GSR.
Absolutely. So GSR is microscopic particulate matter, burnt gunpowder, nitrates, lead that gets expelled when a gun is fired. If Jennifer Fairgate had pulled that trigger herself, GSR would be all over her hand, her clothes, the area around her.
And the medical examiner found?
Nothing. No GSR and no blood was found on her hand, it's a scientific impossibility for a self-inflicted wound at that kind of close range.
So no GSR means she didn't fire the gun. And then there's the second, equally damning contradiction, the total lack of fingerprints.
This is the forensic anomaly that truly sinks the suicide theory for me. A person lives in a room for 3 days. That room should be saturated with their fingerprints.
On the phone, the minibar, the lamp, the bathroom.
Everything. But the scene was completely sterilized. No fingerprints were found on any surface, not on the ammunition magazine, and critically, not on the weapon that was resting on her chest.
It's a completely sanitized crime scene. It's just chilling to think about the level of professionalism that would take.
It means that whoever was in that room, whether it was her for the entire 70-plus hours or a killer who came in after the fact, was wearing gloves. And every single item she might have touched was meticulously wiped down. This points to a preparation and cleanup carried out by someone with extreme patience and a professional mandate to erase the identity of the person found inside.
And there was also the ammunition.
Right. There were 25 extra cartridges stored nearby in a case. That speaks to operational readiness, not emotional finality.
It really does.
You bring a full box of ammunition when you anticipate a mission might go sideways or when you're preparing for a confrontation. It's not a suicide kit. It's an operator's kit.
So despite this overwhelming list of inconsistencies, the fake identity, the erased serial number, the lack of GSR, the missing prints, the companion, the Norwegian police ultimately ruled her death a suicide.
It was the path of least resistance. It's easy to see why. Faced with what looked like an internationally manufactured incident, maybe involving a foreign government, the easiest way to close the books was to call it self-harm.
But the objective evidence it leaves this smoking crater of unresolved questions that suicide simply cannot answer.
This case wasn't closed. It was shelved.
So now we move into the realm of interpretation, of theory, and for 3 decades, these theories have swirled around this case. But before we get into the whole espionage angle, we need to ground this in the context of Europe in the 1990s.
Yes, the mid-90s were really the perfect operational sweet spot for this kind of identity maneuver. The Schengen Agreement was still in its infancy, so border controls were more fluid, but they still existed. It created layers of bureaucracy that someone well-trained could exploit.
And the technology was just
different. So different. Digital infrastructure was weak. Hotel keycard logging systems were often crude and could be easily spoofed or just circumvented. There was no real-time global DNA database. Tracking cash payments was nearly impossible.
So you could just materialize, conduct your business, and then vanish without leaving the kind of electronic trail that we all take for granted today.
Precisely. If this happened today, the police would instantly track her cell phone pings, every Wi-Fi connection she made, CCTV footage from the airport, the train station. In 1995, if you avoided paper trails and credit cards, you were practically a ghost.
Which brings us to theory 1, espionage or assassination. All the evidence we've laid out, the cut tags, the etched gun, the watch, it all points to established tradecraft.
It does. I mean, if you look at the collective body of evidence, the most logical assessment is that Jennifer Fairgate was some kind of intelligence officer. maybe a courier, a deep cover operative, an asset of some kind, who was either compromised or terminated.
And the goal of the operation, whether it was successful or it failed, became making sure her death could never be linked back to the organization she worked for.
Exactly. The cleanup was the final part of the mission.
So if she was an operative, the execution scenario suggests a partner or a handler was the killer.
That's the most plausible scenario given the staging. The killer would have to be someone she trusted, or at least someone who could gain access to her room without a struggle.
Lois Fairgate, the man seen at check-in.
Right. The killer neutralizes her, probably in a way that ensures minimal mess, and then meticulously stages the scene to look like a suicide.
The ultimate challenge for that killer then is that final move. How do you secure a double-locked door from the outside to make it look like she was alone?
This is the million-dollar question, and it's heavily debated. There are a few possibilities. One is an extreme intimacy with the hotel's specific door mechanism. Maybe they studied it beforehand or had specialist tools that could manipulate the interior deadbolt from the exterior key slot.
That sounds very specialized.
It is. Another, maybe darker possibility involves using specialized temporary tools to create the illusion of a lock before they retreat. They'd be banking on that security guard's 15-minute retreat to get far, far away from the scene.
So the guard leaving was absolutely critical to the killer's plan.
It was their golden opportunity. The sequence is vital. The gunshot happens. The guard leaves. The killer, already inside, uses those 15 minutes to complete the cleanup, wipe every surface, remove the last bits of identification, her passport, her wallet, her keys, and then execute that complex locking maneuver. Then they just slip away into the busy hotel and are gone before the security team ever comes back.
This theory gets a lot more weight and frankly gets a lot more frightening when you connect her case to other famous Norwegian cold cases.
Yes, this is where you start to see a pattern emerge. Her case is inextricably linked to the Isdal woman from 1970.
And the Combo Man in 1987.
Right. In both of those instances, decades apart, but in the same country, the unidentified deceased also had the labels meticulously cut out of their clothing.
That cannot be a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. It strongly suggests a patterned professional methodology used by organizations operating in Norway and Scandinavia to dispose of operatives or assets while simultaneously erasing their origins. It's an almost identical signature move.
Which implies the Norwegian police weren't just dealing with a random crime.
It means they were dealing with a structured external methodology designed specifically to defeat the traditional investigative techniques of the time.
Yeah.
They weren't up against domestic criminals. They were up against professionals who considered identity erasure a standard part of their operating procedure.
Okay, let's look at theory 2. This one focuses less on the political motive and more on the pure logistics of the cleanup. The role of the companion and post-mortem removal.
Right. This view really emphasizes the items that are specifically missing. The fact that her wallet, her ID, her passport items she absolutely must have had to even enter the country were gone, that's crucial. It strongly supports the idea that the companion Lois came into the room, killed her, or was present when she died, and then performed the final sweep.
The total lack of fingerprints in the sanitized scene make this logistical theory really compelling.
The companion wasn't just a partner, they were the designated cleaner. They had to have been wearing gloves from the moment they entered that room to the moment they left, systematically wiping down the gun, the doorknobs, the phone, the minibar, everything that could possibly hold trace evidence.
This level of meticulousness confirms that the primary objective after her death wasn't just cover-up, it was
Complete erasure.
And if we accept this companion cleaner theory, we have to look at the difference between an assisted suicide and a straight-up execution. The GSR is the key there, isn't it?
It's the key differentiator. The absence of GSR means she did not pull the trigger. If this was some kind of assisted suicide, where the companion helped her plan the logistics but she carried out the final act, GSR would still be on her hand. Its absence confirms that the companion was the shooter, or that the gun was fired somewhere else and then placed in her hand. It leans very, very heavily toward a staged execution.
And finally, we do have to address the official ruling. Theory 3. Suicide with extreme intent to conceal. We have to at least acknowledge the possibility that she was so desperate to disappear that she engineered this entire scenario herself.
It strains credulity, but technically, yes, we have to consider it. Could she have prepared the fake identity, acquired the acid-etched gun, and cut all the labels out of her clothes purely for a final act of self-erasure? It's possible.
But this theory just falls apart when you look at the detail.
Yeah, it utterly fails to explain several key points. The missing companion, that 20-hour absence from the hotel, and most crucially, how she managed to secure the door in a double-lock fashion with the key cards inside and meticulously wipe the entire room clean of her own fingerprints after she was dead.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
And the choice of venue seems so odd for a suicide. Why a high-profile luxury hotel in a capital city for such a secretive act?
Well, paradoxically, high-end hotels can offer the best anonymity. They're busy, they prioritize discretion, and they're less likely to flag unusual behavior than, say, a quiet remote motel. But ultimately, the preparation, the acid etching, the tradecraft, it screams operational asset who is being disposed of, not an individual simply trying to enter on life quietly. The preparation itself is what created this international mystery.
Let's transition now to the analysis, some of the grounded insights. And as we've discussed, the complete and total absence of fingerprints in room 2805. It remains the single most damning clue against that official suicide ruling.
Without question. Forget the gun for a moment. Let's just talk about basic habitation. You spend 3 days in a hotel room. You're going to leave dozens, maybe hundreds of traceable prints to sanitize an entire luxury hotel room. The textured surfaces, the phone, the TV remote, the fabric on the furniture. To do that perfectly requires a significant amount of focused time and expertise.
It just completely implies a cleanup crew was involved. Or, at the very least, a highly disciplined individual who wore gloves for 3 straight days, which seems unlikely unless you're involved in an operation.
And the fact that no prints were found on the weapon, combined with that lack of GSR, it really cements the conclusion that the gun was cleaned and then placed in her hand post-mortem. It removes all reasonable doubt about the scene being staged.
Let's talk about the physics of that placement. The gun was found loosely resting on her chest. What does that tell us about the actual mechanism of her death?
Well, if a person shoots themselves, especially with a powerful 9mm pistol like a Browning, the recoil is significant. The gun would typically be thrown clear, or their hand would be locked around the grip in a death spasm. And there would definitely be blood spatter or GSR patterns indicating the muzzle distance.
But instead,
you find it resting awkwardly and cleanly on her chest. That is the action of a stagehand placing a prop, not the physical result of a self-inflicted gunshot.
we also have to consider the operational environment that allowed this to be so successful, the forensic limitations of 1995. If this happened today, how different would the investigation be?
Oh, it would be unrecognizable. In 1995, advanced DNA sequencing technology like high-sensitivity touch DNA analysis, it just wasn't standard issue for investigators.
So what could they do with that today?
Today, we could pull DNA from the smallest hair follicle, a tiny piece of skin under a fingernail, trace saliva on a coffee cup she might have used. Furthermore, hotel keycard logging systems are instantaneous now. They're tied to centralized servers. That 20-hour gap would trigger an immediate alert and be traceable.
And her electronic footprint would be everywhere.
Absolutely. Today, we track financial transactions globally, even cash, through bank linkages and large transaction reporting. We track communication logs, phone calls, attempts to connect to Wi-Fi, cell tower pings, none of which really existed back then. Her identity would likely be confirmed within 48 hours.
What about that expensive gold and porcelain dental work? That seems like a key identifier. Why couldn't the police trace it back then?
Because dental records, while they're standardized today, were incredibly difficult to match internationally in the mid-90s. I mean, imagine trying to manually search through the physical paper records of dentists across Germany, France, and Belgium, looking for a match to a very specific, high-quality procedure.
Without a name or a nationality to even start with?
It was a practical dead end. Today, digital records and centralized forensic odontologists make that kind of cross-referencing much, much simpler. The limitation of 1995 technology is precisely why this mystery endures. The operative who handled the crime knew exactly what technology they had to defeat.
Let's go back to the planning for a moment. Everything we've discussed, the fake identity, the specific type of watch, the acid-etched serial number, it all just screams intentionality. She wasn't some random person who was unlucky.
No. She was living a highly controlled, curated, and ultimately expendable identity. The level of preparation required to construct a completely untraceable persona, the professional gun, the sterilized clothing, it suggests she was expecting her identity to be scrutinized, either by a hostile party or maybe by her own handlers in the event of failure or termination.
So she was a meticulously prepared operative. It's really hard to draw any other conclusion besides her being involved in some kind of high-stakes activity. Intelligence, specialized organized crime.
Or perhaps a deeply buried witness protection scenario that went catastrophically wrong. Whatever it was, she was prepared for total operational failure. Her entire presence in Oslo was a phantom existence, designed to prevent any organization, whether they were friend or foe, from confirming her true origins.
And this brings us to a broader, more resonant takeaway for you, the listener. It's this idea of people who choose or are forced to completely erase their past.
We live in an era that's obsessed with digital permanence, right? Every transaction, every search, every photo leaves a trace. The case of Jennifer Fairgate is this chilling reminder of the extraordinary, almost superhuman effort it took just 30 years ago to achieve complete, ultimate anonymity.
And she was successful.
She was. In a way, her death was the final operational step required to sever every single connection to her life before May 31st, 1995.
She checked in as a person who did not exist. And when she was found, she still did not exist. The body was there, but the person had vanished entirely.
Yeah.
So we circle back to room 2805 of the Oslo Plaza Hotel. And all these conflicting details, they just remain unresolved. A double-locked room, a meticulously wiped gun, an absent companion, and a woman who just materialized out of thin air only to vanish completely. She left behind an identity that remains elusive despite decades of searching and international effort.
It is the ultimate testament to the effectiveness of professional tradecraft, operating under the cover of 1990s technology limitations. It's a case that's defined entirely by the evidence that was deliberately removed.
So the final provocative thought we want to leave you with is this. Was the erasure of Jennifer Fairgate's identity completed before her death? Or was the final critical act of her killer to complete that erasure for her, ensuring the mystery would be permanent?
Something to mull over until next time when we look beneath the waves.
Thank you for exploring this haunting case with us. Next time on Threads of Truth, we examine a case that takes us into the suffocating darkness of a deep-water cave system. Ben McDaniel the diver, who descended into Vortex Spring and never returned.